Hi, friends. This is Ashley Lateki Ellen Voss with Sky House Herb School and Apothecary. And today we'll be talking about the wee yet mighty plant, chamomile, cows, and leisure. And in this talk, I'll be weaving together these three concepts. And by the end, hopefully, you will feel more relaxed and maybe you will be inspired to go out and hug or adopt a cow. So let us begin. Now, before I dive into today's material, I wanted to remind you all that I have my upcoming year one herbal apprenticeship course starting in January. The first class will be on Saturday, January 23rd. And this course is offered online. Classes meet one day a week on Saturdays from 11 to 1:30 p.m. So 11 a.m. to 1:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And this year, the course will be all online with hopefully an opportunity in 2022 for people to come and visit and do some herb walks here in Minneapolis and do some in-person training with me. So if you're interested, there's a few ways to join. You can go to our website, www.skyhouseherbs.com, click on our apprenticeship offerings, and you can register there. Another option is to pledge to my husband's Kickstarter, and that will run until December 31st if you make a pledge of $1,000 to his Kickstarter. And then you will get a seat in the course, and that's 50% off the regular price. So to get that deal, you can go to the website and find it there, or you can go to nightlightastrology.com and look for the Kickstarter link. Okay, so I wanted to start by talking about cows because cows are really one of my favorite animals. And ever since I've been a child, I have just been so in love and attracted to cows. It was sort of a joke growing up because, I wanted cow bed sheets. I wanted cow posters, and my room had all sorts of different cow images. I had cow t-shirts for Christmas ornaments. Everyone in the family gave me cow ornaments because I loved them so much. I'm also a sun and moon sign Taurus. So if any of you know astrology, then you know what that means. So I have a lot of bull energy in me. And so, in that way, it's not surprising that I've always had such an affinity and an adoration of cows. So to me, the reason why I just think, cows are one of the greatest animals on this planet is their gentleness, their slowness, and their attentiveness. When you watch a cow, which I've been blessed to be able to have watched cows for many hours, especially in Costa Rica when I lived and worked on a farm, is that, they move slowly with lots of precision, and they're very attentive to what they eat. You'll see their little lips. They'll graze on the grasses they want, and they'll just skip around, any plants that are not part of their diet. So they're very, even though they seem like they might be big and dumb, they're very, very intelligent. In India, cows are revered as being sacred and holy animals. There's a number of reasons for this, but one is because of the association with Krishna as being the protector of the cows, and the cows as being sort of the greatest devotees of Krishna, who is, one of the uh, you could say, like, embodiments of God or the great spirit. And there's a great, beautiful Sanskrit quote that says, Gavau Vishwarya Ma'ath Aranha. And in Sanskrit, that means the cow is the mother of the universe. I just love that. That makes me want to cry. It's so beautiful. I mean, if you think about cows and how giving they are, I mean, since the beginning of time in our relationship with this animal, it has been so generous with giving us milk to feed babies and orphans. It doesn't put up that much of a fight. I mean, certainly they are stubborn, but, you know, really, they're pretty amazing animals. There's a story that one of my spiritual teachers, Radhanath Swami, says about a woman who was she was pregnant, and her husband didn't want her anymore. And so he beat her so severely and thought she was dead and dumped her um, in an old barn. And, was just assuming that, um, she would, never be found in this old sort of abandoned barn. And this one cow stood over her, and the other cows were like, trying to get in there, figuring out what was going on. And this one, matronly large cow just stood over her, and she was very pregnant with her baby and protected her. And, she just said she could feel the love of this animal. And, it was very consciously guarding her. And, it took her, days and weeks to fully recover to be able to walk. And, she was able to find some food, and she grew into being this amazing like leader, and started all of these foundations. And she travels speaking on behalf of battered and disposed women in India. um, but that story just has always stuck with me, just that protective energy of the cow, and how sacred it is, and why so many of us have such an attachment, a positive attachment to this animal. um, there's a word that also reminds me of the cow and cow energy. This is a Dutch concept called Nixon. Maybe you've heard of it before. Niksen, Nixon. And it basically means nothinging. So it's like doing nothing on purpose. So, like, purposefully not doing anything. And so it's kind of become this big thing now, across the world, is people trying to adapt this nothinging into their lives, because we live such a life that's so, it pushes us and prods us to be productive, to do things, to become successful. And Nixon is just, it's a something that the Dutch do, where they just literally take time every day. It's a part of their culture to just do nothing, just to stare out the window, to sit on a cafe and just look out to look at passersby, to literally watch the coffee dripping from the dripper, in the kitchen. Just something that, taking time to just not do, not putting ourselves in a state of forward movement, but just sort of being present. And I just feel like that's really what cows embody all the time. They're just constantly present and slow, and, really doing nothing except eating and chewing their cud, laying beautiful patties for people to use for various medicines and building structures. Um, yeah, and it's just, they definitely embody that leisure that I think so many of us are hungry for right now. And I know for myself, sometimes I wonder, like, how do I even do that? How do I do nothing? And the thing that helps me is thinking back. I mean, I'm in my 40s, so I think back to, my early 20s and mid 20s, when there was no cell phones and there was no internet. I mean, it was like a very different world, but there was like no cell phones or no smartphones. And so, I would just spend a lot of time, between activities, doing nothing, because there was nothing to do. I was just waiting for something else. And, maybe I would read, or I would just look out the window. just just look out the window and do nothing for a whole hour. So, I think putting our devices away can bring us back to that Nixon. And I was talking with one of my good friends. Her and I both, are trying to be less attached to our smartphones. And so she created this contraption where she hooks it up. She's got like this cord and like a hook and a brace that it sticks on the wall, so she can't walk around with it. So that it's not like a distraction from her. So it's like wired and roped to the wall so that it acts as a phone, but not as like a device that travels around the house with her. And so, she's found that that's been hugely helpful with helping her be in a more relaxed, leisurely, attentive state. Oops. And Yeah, other things that cows teach us is, don't be in a hurry. Another thing that they teach us is that, and this is from a research study that showed that happy cows produce more milk. And again, it's not really about being more productive, but if we want to be more efficient, maybe, in when we do have to work, because that's the reality is we have to work, is if we want to be more effective when we're working. The study found that when owners and farmers called the cows by their names and addressed them as individuals, their productivity went up 3 to 5% in total yield, which is significant when you're, a dairy farmer. So, just thinking about, our own personal relationships, like if we can detach from social media and call up our grandma or call up a dear friend and get that personal connection and have them call us by our name, that might also give us a chance to, when we go back to work, be more active and productive. Cows also spend 10 to 12 hours a day laying down. And while I know that might not be possible for us, it's a good thing to think about is, when was the last time you just laid down and closed your eyes for a few minutes? Can you do that when you get home from work? Are there times in the middle of the day, if you work from home, that you could just turn everything off and just lay down and close your eyes? That's really good for resetting your internal space. Also, cows love physical touch. They love to be scratched. They actually created this machine called the Happy Cow machine, which is like this big, it's like this big bristle brush, and the cows will just like lean into it and scratch their bodies. They just love it. And they love to touch each other too. And so, part of what I think helps us to relax is touch. So, even if you have to ask your kids to give you a little foot massage or whatever it is you need to do to get that physical touch, that can be very relaxing and put us into that state of more zen and more softness. Researchers in Germany found that cows tend to face either magnetic north or south when grazing or resting. I thought that was so interesting that they magnetically align their bodies with the magnetic directions of the earth. And so, for those of you who are into Vastu or Feng Shui, another thing to think about is looking at your bedroom and how your house is set up, and just making sure that things are set up in a way where the energy circuits are running most efficiently through your space. And that can also lead to a more harmonious feel in your home, especially in the bedroom. And then cows also have best friends. They tend to kind of pair up, even if it's not the one that they mate with. They tend to have best friends or even animals of other species that they tend to really connect with. And they undergo stress when they're separated. So again, they're very connected animals. And so when we, think about our own lives, are we have we talked to our best friend? Have we reached out to the people that we really love and care for? So why am I talking about cows? I mean, what does this have to do with herbs? What does this have to do with chamomile? Why is this important? Well, one reason is because cows share the same, they have about 80% of the same genes as humans. So we share 80% of our genes with cows. Now, this isn't as much as primates. That's a lot higher, like 98%, but it's still significant. So we are, very similar to them. And I think many of us, if we could lead a life that had more of that cow likeness in it, we might choose that. We suffer from so much stress, I think, in the modern world, that it is important to think about what are some symbols or mirrors or things that can reflect back to us the peace that we want to embody. So I wanted to share with you a poem that illustrates a cow, sort of the day in the life of a cow, and why this is so important. This is from a beautiful book called Weeds in the Heart by Nathaniel Hughes and Fiona Owen. And this is available for sale on many different avenues, probably Amazon, but probably you could get it from a local bookseller too. And so this is a poem from William Henry Davies. And here's how it goes. What is this life, if full of care? We have no time to stand and stare. No time to stand beneath the boughs and stare as long as sheep or cows. No time to see when woods we pass, where squirrels hide their nuts in grass. No time to see in broad daylight, streams full of stars like skies at night. No time to turn at beauty's glance and watch their feet and how they dance. No time to wait till her mouth can enrich that smile her eyes began. A life, a poor life this is, full of care, if we have no time to stand and stare. Isn't that good? So, standing and staring, doing nothing, envisioning the cow. And this brings me to the next piece, which is chamomile. So, chamomile is also called the mother herb, and the Latin name reflects this. The Latin name is Matricaria chamomilla. And mater in Latin means mother, and caria is the same root as care. So, Matricaria is mother care. So, that's its first name. And then its second name, chamomilla, means earth apple, and that's named because of its scent. It has this sort of appley scent. And I know in Spanish it's called manzanilla. Chamomile and apples actually share the same name in Spanish. So um, I love this connection with the cow too, because if the cow is the mother of the universe and chamomile is the mother of all the herbs, then it has this beautiful connection. It's very mothering, just like a cow mothers her calf. I think chamomile can really mother our spirits and really help us to feel safe and calm and relaxed. Um, Chamomile is really a wonderful, relaxing, bitter herb, and it's especially suited for people that have dense heat, or I should say tense heat. So let's just think about someone that might have a lot of tension in their bodies, and they also have a lot of heat in their bodies. This could show up as inflammatory diseases. It could show up as digestive inflammation. This could show up as liver heat, which we could think of as like anger. In Chinese medicine, they look at the liver, and when the liver is out of balance and it's sort of overly stimulated, it can cause anger, or anger can cause an overstimulated liver. So it's really good for those patterns. It's really good for repressed anger or anger that has been unexplored. And so sometimes I've seen this where it can be from childhood. Matthew Wood talks about chamomile as being an herb for children of all ages. And so we can think of this as an herb that can mother us no matter how old or young we are. And we know it. I have read my children the Peter Rabbit story so many times. And at the end, the mother gives Peter Rabbit a tablespoonful of chamomile tea and sends him off to bed with no supper. So there's this very long-standing use of giving a child chamomile tea to help them relax, to help them go to sleep, to help them through illness. And Peter Rabbit had a very bad tummy ache from stealing all of Mr. McGregor's foods, and then he was all wound up from having to run away from him. So chamomile was what a great herb to help settle his stomach, and then to also help him relax and fall to sleep after a very stressful day. Poor Peter Rabbit. So if we are feeling kind of like that, if we're feeling like, we need a little help unwinding, a little help digesting the experiences of the day, this can be a really good herb. And then back to the child image is we can think about the child image as like the 2-year-old who's having a temper tantrum. And as a mother of 2 young girls, I know this one very well. And, children they can get so fixed on something. And my 2-year-old right now, it's like when she wants to control something, and then it's like either time to go, or it's an unsafe thing that she's trying to control, that will just set her off because she wants to do it, and she says how she says, on my own. And this is a good thing. Children need to learn how to do things on their own, how to not need mom. But as we get older, if we feel the need to over control things, this can cause a lot of tension in our bodies and a lot of tension in our minds. And so, chamomile is a really good herb suited for people that have a hard time letting go of control, who can't ask for help, who maybe whine and complain about things. But they don't actually do anything to change it or get outside resources in to help them. So, those are just a few of the images you might want to think about with chamomile. Clinically, chamomile contains a chemical, it's a well researched flavone called apigenin. And I wanted to talk about this because this is part of how it works. It's just so interesting. It has a modulating effect on our GABA alpha receptors, which are activated by benzodiazepines, which are like, nervous system depressants. So chamomile acts on these GABA alpha receptors and causes this benzodiazepine like relaxation effect, obviously without the benzodiazepine, but just with this particular flavone. And so that is one of the main ways that it has this very relaxing effect on the central nervous system. It also is a really good one for addictions. And so this is something that we can think of too. Even if we may not have an extreme addiction, if you find yourself not being comfortable where you are and you're reaching for some substance to put you in some other state of consciousness, you might be served by taking some chamomile to help slow you down, relax you, and bring you back to the present, like the cow chewing on its cud, just like, you know, chewing and chewing, chewing and chewing, moment by moment, moment by moment. So the way that this particular flavone works is it plugs opioid receptors in the brain, so it can be really helpful for heroin withdrawal or any other compounds that plug the opioid receptors. It also will plug the dopamine receptors, which can help with cocaine withdrawal, and it's an analgesic, which can help with ketamine withdrawal. But again, if we think about all of the reasons why many people turn to either these stimulants or depressants, is usually to escape discomfort. And so, if we're trying to escape discomfort, if we can instead soothe ourselves with some chamomile, we might be able to move through those passing moods and come out in a more stable place. Now, I grew chamomile in my garden at the first Sky House garden in Maryland, and I learned a lot about this plant from growing it. It likes to take up space. So the first year I grew it, I just had like three little plants and I spread them out. And the second year, I had this beautiful sheet of green. And and then the third year, I just had prolific flowers. The second year, I had some flowers, but the third year is really when the flowers came. And one thing I remembered learning was that chamomile likes to be stepped on, like it's grown in Europe in as a lawn plant, because it has this wonderful fragrance when you step on it. And also, the more you trample it, the stronger it gets. And so I had my daughter, she was then 3. It was like early spring, and I was like, okay, Gigi, trample on my chamomile. So I had her just go for it, just trample, trample, and step on them and squish them down. I mean, not, obviously not killing them, but just giving them a good roughening up. And sure enough, that was my best year harvest. And they really took off. They really sent out roots so that the stress actually invigorated them to become stronger. So if that's a cool gardening tip or just, an interesting kind of symbolism and doctrine of signatures of this plant, that, the more stress, the harder this plant works. And another thing that's interesting of why I think the mother archetype here works so nicely is that if you make a chamomile infusion, this is what they use in biodynamic farming, is they use chamomile tea to basically help restore vitality to weakened plants on the farm or in a garden. So it acts as a mother to help, a plant that's been damaged by insects or, a bad growing season because of lack of rain or anything else. It's sort of a natural pesticide, but it also is a great revitalizer for both the soil and for the plant. So it mothers the plant back to health. So let's talk about 3 ways to use chamomile to increase your leisure capacity, your ability to be leisurely. And it's funny because my husband would always, he still jokes with me, and he'll say he'll say, what why did he'll be like, what have you been doing these last few hours? Because I like to wake up really early before the kids are up and just, do my thing, do my prayers and my meditation and my exercise and he'll come down and be like, "Well, what did you do?" And are you just putzing around? It's like because I think when it's true, when I'm left to my own, I'll just sort of putz. I like to move slow. I like to have nothing to do. And it's just, can be mind boggling, I think, for some people to be like, well, why does it take you so long to do X, Y, and Z? And it's like, it just does. So I don't know if any of you can relate to that. But okay, let's talk about how to use chamomile. So, the number one way I would try it first, well, first I would say try to find high quality organic chamomile flowers dried. My favorite sources are Oshala Farms, Oshala Farms. They're based out of Oregon. And this is in the United States. So I'm not sure if you can buy them overseas. Probably, but I'm not sure. But they have the most beautiful chamomile flowers. So you can order from them. Zach Woods Herb Farm. Um, Where's another herb farm? What is Hillary's herbs farm's name? Sacred Roots Herbal Sanctuary in West Virginia has wonderful chamomile. And then really, if you can grow it your own, it's not that hard to grow. It grows most places very happily. So, but you want to use it dried. It works a lot better as a dried herb. So the first way is as a cold infusion. So what I like about a cold infusion with chamomile is that it is more sweet. It breaks down less of those bitter tannins and those astringent tannins. So it makes it very aromatic and light and non-drying. So if you tend to run dry, then you might like a cold infusion. So to make a cold infusion, you'll take 2 teaspoons of dried chamomile flowers, 3 cups of cold water, and then let that steep overnight. Then the next day, strain the flowers out, and you can drink half of it in the morning and then half of it maybe like an hour before bed, or just sip on it throughout the day. The second way is a hot infusion. Now, the hot water will pull out the tannins and pull out more of the bitter compounds. So it's going to make it a little bit more specific for increasing digestive function. It's going to be a little bit more drying if you do it as a hot infusion, and it will be a little bit stronger for its relaxing properties too. So to make that, you would do 1 teaspoon of dried flowers in 2 cups of hot water. Steep it covered for about 15 minutes, just like you'd make a normal tea. Strain the flowers out and then drink that. And if you're going to do this before bed, I recommend at least an hour so that you're not going to the bathroom in the middle of the night. The third way is as a tincture. And when you use chamomile as a tincture, the bitter compounds really come out. So if you're working on that repressed anger or you want sort of a little bit more of that digestive liver activating function, then a tincture is a really nice option. And you could start with just 3 to 5 drops on your tongue directly before meals as a bitter, or before meditation if you want to connect with the plant spirit. Those can work really nicely. And then for a more kind of hearty dose, if you're looking to really relax the nervous system and stimulate digestion, then I would do about 1 to 2 full droppers full. That's about 30 to 60 drops, individual drops. And you can do that in a little bit of water, or you can add it to a little bit of club soda is nice, or directly into your mouth if you don't mind that bitter punch. So those are the 3 ways I would suggest using chamomile. And in closing, I just want to say that, I hope that in thinking about this beautiful energy of the cow and the mother and chamomile, that as we move through these next months, that we can embody the sweetness and the gentleness of the cow, and just the way that the cow can just look over large spaces and align herself with the 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 magnetic fields of the earth, just being aligned and attuned and aware. And my prayer is just that we can find ways to be more cow-like and more leisurely and more loving and more attached to the people that we love, and more, experience more touch, and yeah, find ways to remove anger, find ways of resting and laying down a little bit more. and that we can maybe even think about how can we mother our own inner 2-year-old, that part of us that through tantrums and if we didn't have a mother who was equipped to handle that, that this plant and these images that um, may help us to heal those wounds and to help us to let go of control and trust a higher power to guide us, and take the wheel in some way. So, thank you so much for listening. If you want to learn more about cows and cow protection, I strongly recommend that you do a little Google search for cow protection. And there are places all around the country. I'm so excited because here in Minneapolis, right outside the city, there's um, a farm animal sanctuary called Spring Farm Sanctuary, and you can donate to them. I have a cow that I sponsor. His name is Pete. So every month I donate money to them, and that goes to feed and for health care for Pete the cow. And it's just one way that I can give back to this beautiful animal. And there are cow sanctuaries and cow refuges all over the country that you can donate to if you feel so inclined. So thanks again for listening. And let me know if you've used chamomile, any thoughts you have about the connection between cows and chamomile and leisure. And if you liked this talk and you think a friend of yours might like it, please share. And please maybe click on the like button. If you're listening on a podcast, click on the 5 stars, give me a nice review. That way other people can find and listen in as well. So thanks again, everyone, and have a wonderful day.